Hi everyone, let's start with the concept capsules for today. Today we're going to look at the relationship between covariance and correlation. Now this is a topic which confuses a lot of people because correlation is something which people are used to hearing about. Covariance is something which they're not very comfortable calculating. The other point of confusion is that both of them are kind of intended to do the same thing. So why do we have two different measures designed to do the same thing? And when should we use covariance and when should we use correlation? And which one is better out of those? So let's understand how this works, and we'll see how to calculate covariance and correlation as well. Now, before we start with covariance, let's have a quick look at how to calculate variance, because that's really the fundamentals of the entire topic. And once we know how to calculate the variance, we'll be able to move on to covariance and see the relationship between those two as well, see where the measure is coming from. So first, let's do a quick recap of variance. Now, I hope you remember the two terms, variance and standard deviation. Now, the way we are calculating in the long form here is something which is not required in your CFA or the FRM examinations, for the very simple reason that these calculations or these measures are built in to your calculator. So you can just calculate using the statistic function directly on your BA2 Plus or the BA2 Plus professional calculator. But here we are going to do it in the longer format so that we understand where it's coming from and we are able to develop an intuition about the relationship between variance, covariance, and correlation. All right, so let's take an example here. We're looking at the portfolio returns for 5 years. So we have been given year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we have been given the returns in percentages, so 10.5, 8.5, and so on. So here, remember, we are just working with one particular data series. We have the portfolio returns, but it's only for one portfolio. We don't have multiple portfolios yet, and that's why we are using variance. Now, how do we go about calculating the variance? The first thing which you need to do is to calculate the mean or the average of the data series. So we take all of these numbers, the 5 numbers from 10.5 right to 13, and then we add them up together, divide by the number of observations, which in this case is the number of years, which is 5 years. So that's a simple thing to do. I hope everyone remembers how to do that. So that's your mean of the data series. Now, once you have the mean of the data series, what is the next thing which you need to do? We take that mean and we subtract that mean from every single observation that we have. So from 10.5, we're going to subtract 10.1. That gives us 0.4. Similarly, from 8.5, we're going to subtract 10.1. which gives us minus 1.6, and we keep doing this again and again for every single observation. So we take the mean and subtract that from every single observation, and that gives us the deviation from the mean. So the original RT is your return, RT minus the mu is for the mean, so RT minus mu is the deviation from the mean. The next thing that we need to do is to take the square of these deviations. Now, remember, never sum up the deviations from the mean, because that's a property of the mean that whenever you take the deviations from the mean and sum them up together, it is always going to be 0. So that's not what we have to do. We are going to sum up not the deviations from the mean, but the squared deviation. So whatever we get here, we're going to square it. So 0.4 becomes 0.16, minus 1.6 square is 2.56, and so on. So obviously, since we are taking the squares, all of these numbers have to be positive only. Now, the next step would be to sum up all of these square deviations, which gives us 33.7. Next, we divide that by the number of observations, which is 5. So 33.7 divided by 5, that is 6.74. That is the variance of the portfolio. Now, from the variance, how do we calculate the standard deviation? We simply take the square root of variance, and that will be the standard deviation of the portfolio. Always remember that you cannot calculate standard deviation directly. You first have to calculate the variance and you take the square root of that in order to calculate the standard deviation. Now, what is the formula for the variance? This is what we basically did. We started with the data series. We took the observation, we subtracted the mean, we squared that, and we added it across all the observations and divided by TT. Here is the number of periods, basically the number of observations. So that's how we computed variance. Now, once we have the variance, let's move on to covariance. Now, what is covariance really intended to do? What's the purpose of having covariance? Now, covariance is essentially a measure of co-movement. Earlier, we had only one portfolio that we were dealing with. Now, imagine if we had two different portfolios and we had to see how those two portfolios are moving with each other. That would essentially be calculated using the covariance. For instance, let's say if we have one ETF, an exchange traded fund, and the benchmark index, and we want to see how both of them are moving, that would be covariance. If they were moving together, then that would be called as a positive covariance. So covariance is a measure of the degree of co-movement between the two random variables. Now, one example is what we took, the ETF versus the benchmark. The other one could be, you could look at the rate of interest and the rate of inflation. Now, we know that is something also which moves together. Now, how do we calculate covariance? Now, this is how we do it. We take x1 and we subtract the mean of x1. Then we multiply x2. x2 is the next data series. We multiply the deviation from the mean for the next data series. So essentially what we do in covariance versus variance is that in covariance you have two different data series. So let's say series x1 and x2. Rather than taking the square of the first data series, we take the deviations from the mean for the first data series, then we take the deviations from the mean of the second data series, and then we multiply them together. So once we have done that, then we would again, just like what we did for variance, we would add them up together and divide by the number of observations. And that would give you the covariance. We'll just try to do a question on that. Now, what is the interpretation of covariance? If you get a positive covariance, that essentially means that the return on both the assets tend to be on the same side. So if we are, since we're benchmarking it to the average, to the expected value, both of them would be either above the average or below the average at the same time. That would be positive covariance. Negative covariance is the opposite, that if one is above the mean, then the other one would be below the mean. What if you have zero covariance? That means that both the variables are unrelated. So that's what covariance is. Now let's try to calculate covariance. Now let's look at this particular data and compute the covariance. We have two different data sets, data set 1 and data set 2. For now, just ignore data set 2. We will come back to that later. Right now, we will focus on data set 1. So here we have the return of asset 1 and the return of asset 2 for 5 years. Just like what we were doing earlier, we were only doing it for one portfolio for 5 years. Now we're going to do it for two different kind of assets, asset 1 and asset 2 for 5 years. Now you've been given the data for both the assets, so 5%, 4.5% and so on for asset 1, 6%, 6.2% and so on for asset 2. Now how will we calculate the covariance? We follow the same steps as what we did for variance. We first calculate the mean for asset 1 returns. We calculate the mean for asset 2 returns. That's the first step. Once you've done that, you find out the deviations from the mean for both the assets. So we take the average that we calculated here for asset 1, subtract that from every single return or every single observation in the first series. The second mean is subtracted from all the observations of the second series. Those will give us the respective deviations from the mean for both the data series. That is what has been done here. That's your R1 and R2, the same numbers which we had in the previous slide. R1 minus ER1, that is essentially ER1 is your mean. So ER1 is 0.052. Similarly, expected return on the asset 2 is 0.061. So you have mean of series 1 as well as the mean of series B. Now, for the first one, 0.05 minus 0.052. Remember, you have to subtract mean from every single number. That's minus 0.002. You keep doing that across the entire data series. Similarly, for the second one, 0.061, we subtract 0.061 from the first observation, then from the second observation, right till all the observations are done. And that comes in here. So this column is showing you the deviations from the mean for R1. This column is showing you the deviations from the mean for asset 2. Now, what is the next step? Remember, we don't have to square anything here. This is covariance, not variance. We take these deviations from the mean and we multiply them together in this particular column, the last one. Now, all the deviations, all the multiplied deviations which you get here, we take them together and we sum it up. which gives us this number 0.000043. Then, just like what we did for variance, we are going to divide it by 5, which is the number of observations, and that gives us 0.0000086. That is the covariance between R1 and R2. So, as you would have noticed, most of the steps are actually quite similar to how we calculate variance. Now let's see what is the exact relationship between variance and covariance. Now, if we go back to the previous slide, we see this, the data set 2, which we did not work on yet. You have similar information available here. You have return of asset 1 and return of asset 2. But the difference that you see here is that these returns are exactly the same. Here it was 5%, 6%, and so on. Here, the second data series has actually been substituted by the same figures as what we had in asset 1, which means asset 1 and asset 2 have identical returns. Now, if we had to calculate the covariance between these two returns, what would we get? R1 would be this, R2 will also be this, so you would have 0.05, 0.05, or 0.045. All of this would basically get repeated in this column, which means your deviations from the mean are also going to be exactly the same because your data series, both the data series have exactly the same numbers. So your deviations obviously need to have the same numbers as well. Now, once you have that, and when we multiply them together, you're going to end up with just the square of the number. So in the last column, you end up with the square of the number, exactly like what you would have got with variance. And once we add them up and we divide it by the number of observations, the covariance and the variance is obviously going to be the same. So we can essentially say that variance is just a special case of the covariance. It's not a completely different measure. Variance is just a special case of the covariance where the two variables are identical. So in this case, we said both the assets are identical because they're giving the identical returns. So if two variables are identical, your variance is, we're saying it's just a special case of covariance in that case. So that's how both of them are related. So that was the second measure, which is covariance. Now, before we move on to correlation, let's understand that if our purpose is already solved, we already know how these two data series are connected to each other, why do we need another measure to describe that relationship? Now, the problem with covariance lies here. So when we see this particular number of 0.0000086, the problem with this is that it does not give us an idea about the magnitude of the relationship. It's giving an idea about the degree, but we don't know the exact magnitude. By that, what we mean is, let's say if R1 and R2 have a covariance of 0.0000086, and let's say we had R3 and R4, which had a covariance of 0.000018, how do we know how much better the relationship or the positive relationship between R3 and R4 is compared to R1 and R2? We cannot compare those two relationships because we don't have an idea of the scale of the relationship. Because covariance can go from -infinity to +infinity, right? So there is no scale to the relationship. So you don't really have a basis of comparing the various returns that you could have. That is exactly where correlation comes into the picture. Correlation is essentially standardized covariance. Now let's see what that means. Now this is how we calculate correlation. We start with covariance. Remember, correlation cannot be calculated directly. You will need to calculate the covariance first. From that, you proceed and you apply this formula to calculate the correlation. So we take the covariance and we divide it by standard deviation of the first data series multiplied with the standard deviation of the second data series. So covariance divided by the individual standard deviations, that is going to give us correlation. In notation form, this is how we put it. We have rho, this P kind of a symbol that you see, that's actually rho, which denotes correlation, is equal to the covariance between the two variables divided by sigma I and sigma j, I and j being the two variables. Now, as soon as you divide covariance by these individual standard deviations, this is what is called as the process of standardization because you're dividing it by standard deviation. Now, what that does is that it puts an upper and a lower limit to covariance, the original covariance number which we had. Now, covariance could have gone from -infinity to +infinity, but that's not the case with correlation. correlation is bound by -1 on one side and +1 on the other side, which means the correlation will always be between -1 and +1. So if the relationship is perfectly positive, which means both the figures or both the variables are going in the same direction all the time, that would be the positive correlation. If they're always going in opposite direction, that would be negative correlation. We are talking about perfect terms where +1 and -1. If it's, let's say, plus 0.5 or plus 0.3, that means there is still a positive relationship. However, it's not a very strong positive relationship, so to say. So the more it is closer to +1, the stronger the relationship is going to be. So that's what the interpretation is. Increasingly positive correlation. That means as you move from -1 and you keep moving towards +1, the relationship is actually becoming stronger. So if it's 0, we'll see how that happens. You might think that it means that there is no relationship, but we have to be very specific about that. We'll cover that in the next slide. When you go from 0 to +1, the strength of the positive relationship is increasing. +1 is the maximum where you could go. Similarly, increasing negative correlation. When you start from 0, you keep moving towards -1. -1 is the maximum negative relationship which could be there. If it's, let's say, -0.3, that means there is still a positive relationship, but it's not too high a relationship. Now, zero correlation, that is what we just briefly mentioned. What does zero correlation really mean? Does it mean that there is absolutely no relationship between the two variables? Now, let's find out if that's actually true. Now, let's try this particular example. You need to calculate the correlation between these two variables and interpret the results. So you have variable 1, variable 2. Variable 1 is 1, 0 and -1. Variable 2 is 1, 0 and 1. Now, at this point, you can pause the video for a bit. You can do the calculations, either do it using your calculator or you can do it using the long method that we just did. Now, once you calculate the correlation here, you see that the correlation actually comes out to be 0 between both the data series. So correlation is 0. Does that mean there is no relationship between both the variables? Now let's see. If you look at this closely, you'll see that variable 2 is actually nothing but the square of variable 1. 1 square is 1, 0 square is 0, and -1 square is 1. So the correlation which you have calculated is 0, but there is a very clear-cut relationship that your variable 2 is the square of variable 1. So if you thought that correlation of 0 means that there is no relationship between the variable, then you would have been wrong. We can very well see what the relationship is. Now, why is this really happening? This happens because most people tend to ignore one simple fact about correlation. And this is true not only for CFA or FRM candidates, even in the real world, when you see someone mentioning correlation, they would very conveniently forget about this particular fact and they would get the data wrong. They would get the interpretation wrong. So be very careful about interpreting correlation. When we say that the correlation is 0, so there is no relationship, what we are actually talking about is a linear relationship. A non-linear relationship can still very much be there. So correlation is a measure of only the linear relationship. It does not measure the non-linear relationship. So in this case, as you can very well see, variable 2 is the square of variable 1. But this relationship is non-linear. That's why correlation was not able to measure it properly. Okay, so always remember this bit. So correlation is only for linear relationship, but this relationship is non-linear. That gets us to the next point, the related point, and it's a very popular statement and something which is, which gets asked in the exam in various formats as well. If two variables are independent, then the correlation between them is 0. So if two are independent, the correlation will always be 0. But vice versa is not true. If the correlation between any two variables is 0, that does not necessarily imply that the two variables are independent, because it only says that they don't have a linear relationship. A non-linear relationship can very well still be there. So we have to be careful about interpreting correlation, and we have to remember it's only a linear measure. So that's all for today, guys. I hope covariance and correlation is something which is clearer to you now, and you would remember this particular bit about the correlation being a linear measure. I hope you found this useful. Thank you.